Throughout time, roller coasters have come and gone. Only some become legends for their intensity and thrills. Each and every year, coaster fans like you venture to the parks, searching for that one special ride that stands out above the rest. You submitted your rankings, and now it's time to reveal the group of elite roller coasters that you have voted as the best of the best. COASTER-net is proud to present the 2016 Thrilling 32.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of COASTER-net Uncut. It is the second round of the 2016 Thrilling 32 Bracket Challenge. Tonight, we've gone through the first round. We know who the winners are. We know who got through that very first round in the Thrilling 32. We're on to the Sweet 16. I am Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York, alongside, as always, Andy Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
Danny, I am still reeling from some of the things that happened in round one. Can you believe, can you believe that Millennium Force is no longer with us in this tournament? It blows my mind, Danny.
I'll tell you what. Yeah, it really does. And, you know, people are going to call fix on this one. You just know they are. But at the end of the day, Millennium Force is a top 5 coaster for you and me. I mean, Millennium Force is one of those coasters that you and I, it's one of the few coasters I think that you and I really, really agree on that is a top 5 coaster. And it just baffled me that Millennium Force didn't even make it through the first round this year. And, you know, in a couple weeks, we'll be able to see where it ended up overall. Who knows? Maybe Phantom's Revenge is just really, really high. We'll see Phantom's Revenge a little bit later is taking on Nemesis here. So we'll see who ranked higher out of those two. But, you know, we'll get to that a little later. We're going to start off with the wood bracket as we have been doing. Do you have any thoughts you want to share before we get into it, Andy, or are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. After that first round where my mind was completely blown, I don't know what's going to happen anymore. I think I still have a pretty good idea. I think my brackets, for the most part, are still intact. But as you know, anything can happen in the Thrilling 32.
Absolutely, and I think the first round is kind of separating the men from the boys, and I think you get a couple of the boys get an easy matchup and maybe get through, but this second round, the Sweet 16 here in each of the brackets, is really where you separate the pretenders and the contenders. I mean, we're really going to start to see some really good coasters emerge through this round, because after this round, I don't think there's going to be any of those, you know, questionable coasters. You know, remaining after this round. I think we're really going to get down to the big boys once we narrow it down to the Elite Eight. So without further ado, let's get into it. We've got the wood bracket going first. We'll start with the Cyclone region, and the first matchup we've got here is Renegade from Valley Fair going up against Outlaw Run from Silver Dollar City. Now, this is definitely one that I think if you picked these two coasters to get into this round, I think this is one that you probably feel pretty good about with Outlaw Run. I think if you look at where Outlaw Run has been its first 2 years, it won in its very first year, its rookie year, and then the sophomore season came in second to Voyage, so now looking to make a run to maybe reclaim the title. And then you look over at Renegade, a really nice coaster, a coaster that you and I both got to ride for the first time this year, and Renegade is sitting right around the number 20 mark in 2013, number 19, and then actually dropped to number 22 last season. But you've got to keep in mind that, you know, between me and you, we've been on a lot of coasters, and we both really like this one. So maybe just between you and me, we're going to bump this coaster up a little bit. So, you know, maybe it's moving up. But do you think Renegade can overtake Outlaw Run? Kind of the battle of the outlaws here.
Yeah, as much as I like Renegade, Outlaw Run is in a completely different class of coaster. I know you're not high on the opinion of Outlaw Run. You like it, but you have your you have your reasons for
not liking it, but I believe Outlaw Run is one of the elite roller coasters in this whole tournament. There is no way it's going down to Renegade here. I got Outlaw Run moving on in this matchup easily.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Outlaw Run is not in my top 3 like it is with a lot of other people. I think it's in my top 10. If not, it's like 11. I mean, and over 100 wood coaster, that's still pretty good. I mean, it's not like Outlaw Run was a coaster that I was ready to hate purely on principle and absolutely loved it. And again, we talk about if you don't ride a ride for a couple years, you kind of forget how awesome it is. I think that's kind of the case with Outlaw Run here, so I do want to go back and ride it. It is Outlaw Run moving on to the Elite 8 for the 3rd consecutive year here. Outlaw Run does knock off Renegade here in the Sweet 16, and, you know, I think this is one that I don't think a lot of people had wrong. I mean, I think most people, you know, you've got the champion from 2 years ago and the runner-up from last year. I think most people probably had this one right and had Outlaw Run getting through the first 2 rounds. So not much of a surprise here, I think.
Yeah, this is no surprise at all to me. Outlaw Run, you know, is probably, you know, one of the favorites coming into this tournament, given its standing, given how many people enjoy Outlaw Run. That's still, even with all the other coasters that have come out, wood coasters, RMCs, Outlaw Run still talked about in very high regard. So not surprising at all for me in this result.
No, not a surprise at all. So now, the next coaster that gets a chance to take down Outlaw Run is our winner between Legend at Holiday World and Rampage at Alabama Splash Adventure. And you want to talk about 2 coasters that are very similar? I think if you look at these 2 coasters side by side, you've got 2 coasters that were built by Custom Coasters towards the end of their run. You've got 2 coasters at small town parks, ironically, both being run by parts of the Cook family now. Mm-hmm. So you've got a little bit of comparison there. And at the same time, you've got coasters that kind of have a bit of a terrain aspect to them. They've got some good airtime, but they're really kind of about the lateral forces, I think, as well, kind of styled to give you that out-of-control feeling. Now, you've been on both of these. I've only been on Legend. I'd like to get down to ride Rampage sometime this coming year. I don't know if that's going to happen, but, you know, you're going to have to take the reins on this one because I haven't been on both of these, whereas you have.
And I got news for you. This is a flip of the coin if ever there was a flip of the coin. Legend is relentless in its continual, you know, just beating you down with forces and with, you know, experience. And Rampage, on the other hand, has really great moments of force, really great moments of airtime. You know, Legend. I don't know if I equate airtime with Legend as much as I do with lateral force. Rampage, on the other hand, I think I equate more with a little of both. I think it's a more balanced coaster. Oh man, this one is one that it's a flip of the coin for me, Danny. I'll be completely honest with you. I can't make this decision. You know, I love Legend, and I love what it does. That helix, and I keep talking about that helix, is just amazing. Probably the best helix in all of roller coasters anywhere. But Rampage has a lot of nice elements. I think it's a more balanced coaster. I'm going to have to give the edge to Legend, though, in my book. As much as I love Rampage, I think Rampage is going to fall short here, mainly because a lot of people haven't ridden it yet. I think the people who have ridden it love it. And you know what's funny about this is that I think currently Rampage is ranked higher on my list than Legend. So this is quite the conundrum.
You're struggling with this.
I am, but I'm gonna have to give it to Wait, what did I say? Did I say Legend was winning or Rampage was winning? I don't even remember now.
You said you were going to give your edge to Legend.
Okay, I'm going to keep it that way. Let's go with that.
Are you sure? Do you want to change your answer?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I'm going to stick with Legend and see what happens. Roll the dice.
Well, hang on to your 10-gallon hat Outlaw Run, because Rampage is coming for you.
Whoa.
Rampage upsets Legend and is going to the Elite Eight. How about this? Rampage, in its first season back in operation, has impressed enough, first full season, has impressed enough folks that it's beaten Shivering Timbers and Legend.
Wow.
And it's, I mean, those are not two small feats, and now an opportunity to take down Outlaw Run. With a berth in the Final Four on the line here.
Once again, I can't say that I'm surprised by this outcome. You saw how torn I was between these. I even said I think Rampage currently is ranked higher than Legend by a few spots on my personal list. I'm surprised that the overwhelming support of the people didn't come out for Legend. But that will just show you that even though there's only a few people who have been on Rampage, that's how good they think it is. So not surprising to me in that respect.
They really like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you talk about Cinderellas. I mean, Rampage might be one, but at the same time, you may not be all that surprised. But it's because it came out of a pretty darn good half of that bracket. So now Outlaw Run looming in the next round. So let's move on to the next region. We've got the Hercules region, and talk about Cinderellas. I mean, this is kind of the region where I think if there was to be a Cinderella, it's going to come out of this region, especially this top half here. We've got Kentucky Rumbler going up against the Wild Mouse from Blackpool Pleasure Beach in England. So you look at that matchup, and one of those two coasters is going to be in the Elite Eight this year. I mean, that's kind of like last year it was Coaster at P&E Playland, which went down in the first round. Bull Striker this year, but between Kentucky Rumbler and Wild Mouse, one of those two is in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, this one, I got you on this one as well, because you have not ridden Kentucky Rumbler yet. I really like Kentucky Rumbler. I do think it has some flaws, though. I think they're noticeable flaws. I have not been on Wild Mouse, but if the people overseas like it as much as what I've been hearing out of this first round and out of the brackets and out of the poll, you know, maybe Wild Mouse is the coaster of P&E Playland in 2016. I'm thinking it's going to knock off Kentucky Rumbler in this round, simply because Kentucky Rumbler's nice, but it has noticeable flaws in its maintenance, in the way that it runs, in its design a little bit. I can see how people may not really like that ride, and I wonder if it's going to end up hurting Kentucky Rumbler in the overall ranking.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I think Wild Mouse surprised a lot of people taking down American Thunder in the first round. I mean, I will tell you this, almost everyone had American Thunder going through that first round. Well, Wild Mouse has taken down a second GCI coaster. Like you said, Wild Mouse is a Cinderella. Where's the glass slipper, people?
Yeah,
it's
seriously.
The Wild Mouse from Blackpool Pleasure Beach. The Wild Mouse from Blackpool Pleasure Beach is in the Elite Eight, knocks off Kentucky Rumbler, and boy, I don't know. Is there any? I mean, I think there might have been one, maybe two people off the top of my head that had Wild Mouse going to the Elite Eight, but that just goes to show you a wooden Wild Mouse. I mean, with those tilting cars, people love that ride over there, so they have a special place in their heart for it. So, you know,
it sounds unique.
Kudos to the guys overseas. Yeah, exactly. They're
sounds
bringing
like
their coaster through here.
It sounds like a unique concept. It sounds like it actually was executed well, where sometimes you get some of those gimmicks and you're just like, this is dumb. Doesn't sound to be the case here. That it was a well thought idea, executed well, and now you see it's an Elite Eight coaster. So once again, I did not have this matchup on my bracket. But looking at the matchup beforehand just now, once again, not a surprise to me as to what happened in this round, because like I said, Kentucky Rumbler has noticeable detractors and flaws in it. So Wild Mouse moving on, I say good for Wild Mouse.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations to our British friends over there, too, for having a wood coaster moving on here.
And
they were a little disappointed with Grand National, but the Wild Mouse redeems the Grand National.
And I can pretty much guarantee this will be the only Wild Mouse to appear on either side of the Thrilling 32 ever. We will never see a Wild Mouse anywhere else. Trust me, it ain't going to happen.
Yeah. You probably have a better chance of a steel Wild Mouse making the bracket than you do Raptor, but that's another story. So.
Oh, you know what? I didn't wear my gear today, but I can go right over here and get my hat. You want me to wear my hat for the rest of the show? Because I can wear my hat.
No, please. Oh, man. So, we're talking about Wild Mouse being the Cinderella here. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we've got two really heavy hitters, two top 10 coasters from last year. Balder from Leisberg there in Sweden going up against Phoenix at Knoebels. Now, this is one people struggled with. The people who had these two coasters going up against each other had trouble deciding which one to put through to the Elite Eight, because Balder is widely considered to be one of the best, if not the best, wooden coaster in Europe. Intamin plug and play. It's been around for a long time. It's stood the test of time. The longevity. The people really like it. Lots of airtime. A nice long ride. And then you look at Phoenix, a classic coaster that a lot of your older coaster enthusiasts like. A lot of your younger coaster enthusiasts like. 42-inch height requirement. The restraints are not restrictive. Lots of airtime. Very smooth. The park does a good job taking care of it. So, this is a tough one, especially if you haven't been on, both of them. This one's tough to gauge because they both rank so highly on people's lists.
Absolutely. But you know what? I'm going to have to go with it's my gripes about Knoebels are well documented on the internet. So for me to say that Phoenix is an outstanding roller coaster, even though it's at Knoebels, is saying something. So Phoenix, I'm going to tell you, is not only an outstanding roller coaster, but beyond that completely. Phoenix is one of the few wood coasters that I would rank very highly on a combined list of both wood and steel. There's not only about my top 5 in wood coasters would probably make it onto a combined list in the top 25 into a combined list. So for me to put Phoenix into that echelon, that tier of greatness, it's saying something. That's why I'm saying Phoenix. As much as the Europeans love their coaster out there, I think Phoenix is going to move on to the Elite Eight here.
Well, it is Phoenix moving on to the Elite Eight. Phoenix had some trouble. Phoenix had a bad draw last year because it was in that bracket of that region of death that we like to talk about. Phoenix, not the case this year. It's through 2 rounds now, and it's got the Wild Mouse from Blackpool Pleasure Beach. I mean, we know that the people overseas, the Europeans, love that Wild Mouse. But I don't know. I kind of just looking at it at a first glance, I really like Phoenix to win that one too. So we'll have to see. I think Phoenix just has too many fans and has just been around for too long, really high on people's lists, as opposed to the Wild Mouse, which not a whole lot of people I think know about even. So I don't know. That'll be an interesting one to talk about in the coming days when we get to the next round here.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so moving to the next region, we're going to the Rolling Thunder region, and this is where we run into the only wood coaster left at Six Flags Great Adventure. It's El Toro going up against Tremors from Silverwood. Now, this is, again, Tremors is kind of in that same class as Legend and Rampage, where it's, later CCI coaster, a good mix of airtime and laterals, a nice long ride. You maybe got some tunnels in there. Tremors is, and it's one of those that's not ridden by a lot of people. I think Tremors is very comparable to Rampage in that regard. So is it possible that Tremors also scores an upset
right
here?
There. Just stop right there. You're trying to sell this to me way too much. Come on. You can talk about Tremors all you want, but look at who it's going up against. It's going up against El Toro. The same El Toro that gave Boulder Dash an unceremonious departure in the very first round, sent Boulder Dash packing. Your little, baby of a coaster. Oh, I love Boulder Dash so much. Oh, the night ride was amazing.
Oh,
get out of here. El Toro sent it packing, and it's going to send Tremors packing right now, too. So just stop talking about Tremors and let's move on, because El Toro is taking this all the way to Elite Eight.
Well, remember that upset of the century we talked about in the first round? Yeah, that's not happening here. It's El Toro moving on to the Elite Eight. El Toro knocks off Tremor. Not a surprise. Not a surprise here.
Come on. Tremors might be a great coaster. I've never been on it. But let's be honest. El Toro, people gush about El Toro all the time. People love El Toro. So there's no question in my mind that is the clear victor in this matchup.
Yeah, El Toro's moving on, and speaking of great coasters, we've got a battle of the great coasters coming up here. We've got Gold Striker versus Thunderhead, and this is one that I think people have been waiting to see. I mean, when the bracket came out, people looked at it and said, holy crap, you've got Gold Striker and Thunderhead on a collision course in the second round, because people who are from the East Coast call Gold Striker Thunderhead West, and then the West Coast people who eventually get out to ride Thunderhead after they've ridden Gold Striker, they say, okay, they understand it. So now looking at the comparison here, Gold Striker obviously was new for 2013. So didn't qualify in 2012, obviously wasn't built yet. 2013 did not have enough riders to qualify. In 2014, last season, came in at number 6 on this list, which is higher than Thunderhead, which finished 12th last year. Now, Thunderhead has trended down in the last few years. It was number 4 back in 2012, and then in 2013 dropped down to number 9 as we got some more riders. And then again, last year, the poll expanded more, dropped to number 12. But, we're seeing a lot of new coasters. We're seeing new coasters like Rampage. We're seeing coasters like the Wild Mouse coming in that we haven't seen in years past. So the question is, where does Gold Striker fall? And like I said, because the number of voters more than tripled this year, it's really tough to figure out where these two coasters ended up, because there's so many more people participating. It is not out of the question that Thunderhead could be ahead of Gold Striker here.
Yeah, this one's such a tough decision because, like you said, there's a lot of similarities between these two roller coasters. Will the classic love of Thunderhead, which I don't understand, triumph, or will the new kid on the block, Gold Striker, come out ahead? I don't know. This one is another flip of the coin, but I'll tell you what, I'm really interested to see how the poll actually rank these two roller coasters. I would tend to believe Thunderhead is going to prevail because usually Wood Coaster fans are more traditional. They like the stuff that came first. That's why they still talk about the Beast for some obscene reason. But I think Thunderhead's going to prevail in this one.
Well, and having been on both of these coasters, I do rank Gold Striker a little bit higher, not much higher. I mean, they're both very good coasters. They're both top 10s on my list. But it is Gold Striker that moves on to the Elite Eight here. So now Gold Striker wins the battle. This battle that we've been hearing about for a few years, the whole Gold Striker versus Thunderhead debate. Which one's better? And now Gold Striker staring El Toro in the face.
Really?
So Gold Striker, a Final Four coaster last year, remember? So El Toro, Gold Striker. I mean, oh boy, if you have El Toro in your Final Four, or maybe even championship, or winning this, I think you have to feel really nervous right now, knowing that Gold Striker took down Thunderhead. I think you got to be nervous about that right now.
I don't know. To me, El Toro's the superior coaster still. We'll see what happens because, El Toro, as much as I love it and as much as a lot of people other love it, some people say that it's not their favorite. It's too intense for them. The restraints are a little tight, so we'll see what happens. Anything can happen, but it's going to be interesting to see where that one plays out. I think Gold Striker, that's a huge win, though. Let's be honest. That Gold Striker beating Thunderhead, that is a huge victory for Gold Striker, and quite surprising. So this one I am taken a little bit aback by, because I thought Thunderhead would be marching in against El Toro to get buzzsawed.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, it's one that people had a lot of trouble with, too. Gold Striker and Thunderhead was a tough one that people had problems deciding on. So moving to the final region of the wood bracket here, it's the Son of Beast region, and the Beast has already departed this region, so as you so eloquently put a little earlier. Now, the first matchup here is another heavyweight. You got two heavyweight battles here. First, we've got Voyage going up against what you call the poor man's Voyage in Ravine Flyer 2. So you've got similar styles, terrain coasters. Obviously, the Voyage is a lot bigger, a lot longer. Ravine Flyer, shorter, not as long, not as fast, obviously. But both coasters chock full of airtime, directional changes, some good terrain elements, 90-degree turns around both of them. So I don't know. What do you think about this one? This one I think is intriguing.
Ravine Flyer is a fine roller coaster. I'm not a super huge fan of it. But Voyage is a near perfect roller coaster. So I don't understand. Voyage is my number one wood coaster, far and above everything else, and it would probably be within my top 10 of a combined list. So, Voyage is just so far and above everything else. As much as people love Ravine Flyer, I think when push comes to shove, Voyage is going to come out. The champion of last year is going to prevail here in this round as well, in my opinion. Many say it's a religious experience. Never heard that said about Ravine Flyer 2, so I'm going to go with Voyage.
Boy. Yeah, that's a good point there. It is Voyage. Moving on to the Elite Eight, the defending champ stays alive. I'll tell you what, Voyage has not had, does not have an easy path to the Final Four here. I mean, you had the Beast in the first round, but Ravine Flyer is a tough coaster, and then you look at the two that are waiting for Voyage here, and we'll see who wins in a minute, but you've got two really good coasters here, the winner of which is going to be going up against Voyage, so certainly no cakewalk for Voyage this year, but it is in the Elite Eight, one win away from a return to the Final Four again.
And rightfully so.
Yeah, I think so. So our final matchup in the 2016 Thrilling 32 wood bracket in the second round here, the Sweet 16, we've got Colossus from Hyde Park in Germany. Intamin plug and play, actually very similar to El Toro, going up against Goliath at Six Flags Great America, that really nice RMC wooden coaster that you have up there in your neck of the woods. Colossus took down the Coney Island Cyclone in round one, while Goliath took down the Thunder Track of Lightning Racer at Hershey Park. So, this is an interesting one because I think even though you haven't ridden Colossus, I think the people who haven't ridden Colossus might be able to say, well, it's kind of like El Toro, but people don't like it quite as much as El Toro. So, and when you think of it that way, that makes this one really tough to decide.
Yeah, this one's super tough because I think a lot of people have never ridden Colossus, so they, like you said, it's hard to gauge based on point of view and all that and what the Europeans have said. But Goliath, you kind of know it's a good coaster, but once again, Goliath has its flaws, and I think its major flaw is its length. The inversions are great. That first drop is amazing. The airtime hill is amazing. Has a lot of great stuff packed into that little area, but at the end of the day, it is a little area. And is it enough to put this coaster into the Elite Eight, and does it have enough ridership? You would think Great America is a place that most coaster enthusiasts want to go. The pizza is great, not at the park, but outside the park, the pizza's great. The people are lovely. You're going to meet some of the nicest people you've ever met at Six Flags Great America.
Like some screwy green roller coasters.
Oh, well, yeah. A vertical velocity, a fine intimate impulse coaster.
It's not even green.
The supports are green, aren't they? I don't even know.
No, they're supposed to be blue. They've just faded. You're going crazy. They are. Yeah, Spacely Sprocket Rockets has green supports, does it not?
Spacely Sprockets, yes. We love our Spacely Sprockets. Anyway, like I was saying, great people may not know their colors very well, but that doesn't matter. There you go. You're going to walk.
Also, and as we learned last year, they can't spell raptor either because they thought 5 letters was in the word. They thought it was rapto.
Oh my God. Yes. Okay. Let's move on. I got Goliath moving on. I got Goliath. I'm picking Goliath to win.
Well, people from Chicago, they don't know their colors, they can't spell raptor, and their roller coaster loses in the second round here. Colossus from Hyde Park in Germany. Moving on to the Elite Eight. So now all of a sudden you've got kind of like the original El Toro going up against Voyage in the next round. All of a sudden it's like, ooh, okay. So, I mean, Colossus is really high now because Goliath's pretty high too. It's a pretty good coaster, ranked really highly last year. So all of a sudden it's like, ooh, all right, strap in for these Elite Eight matchups. I mean, We've got some good ones coming here. Yeah, so I don't know. Any thoughts on the wood bracket as it sits right now before we jump over to steel?
Outside of a few here, I don't think we have a lot of major surprises. I think maybe Gold Striker, Colossus moving on.
Wild Mouse is really the only big one.
Yeah, so this one, and I think as you move forward, the problem was getting to this point where that first round in the wood bracket was just killer. Was just, you couldn't make a decision either way. But if you're looking pretty good coming to this point, I think you should be able to carry on to the finals and to the champion, because I think things in my mind are beginning to look a little clearer. I don't know about your mind. I'm a little bit smarter than you, but things are looking a little bit clearer to me.
I don't know. Well, I don't know about that. But yeah, so our matchups are Outlaw Run versus Rampage. Then we've got Wild Mouse versus Phoenix. Then we've got El Toro versus Gold Striker. And then Voyage versus Colossus. So I think if you're at this point and you have like 5 or 6 of those 8 correct, you're probably feeling pretty good about yourself if you could make it through with 5 or 6, or at least half. I think if you have at least half of those right, and if you still have 4 in the mix, then you still have a chance to have all 4 of the final 4 correct, which is definitely a plus. Because if you can get 3 or 4 of the final 4 right, and then that sets you up well for the championship, you're starting to rack up some of those higher point values in these later rounds here, and you're maybe looking at some bonus points for having an entire round correct. So I think that's something to consider when you're tallying up your scores here. So I think if you have 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 of those 8 correct, you should be feeling pretty good about yourself at this point, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so are you ready to take a look at the steel coasters? I know this is the one you're more excited for at this point.
Oh, absolutely. I love my steel coaster, so I can't wait. And we've got a matchup coming up very soon. Oh, man. Okay, let's talk about this first one first. Oh, yes.
All right, so we're going to the Z-Force region where we see New Texas Giant, which knocked off Montu in the first round, going up against the winner of the Goliath. It's Goliath from Six Flags Over Georgia, which knocked off the La Ronde Goliath in the first round. So now we've got 2 coasters, different companies. We've got RMC versus B&M. We've got 2 Six Flags coasters, actually 2 Six Flags Over coasters. Both with some good air time, both with some long ride times, I think, but very different style coasters in New Texas Giant and Goliath here. And I know where your pick is on this one. You're going with Goliath all the way here. I know you are.
Yeah, for sure. But the problem with my pick right now is that I know how much people love New Texas Giant. I don't understand those people. I don't know why they like to be on a ride that's about 2 times as long as it should be. But Goliath in my book is the far superior roller coaster. But the question is do the people support Goliath more or New Texas Giant more? I'm still going to err on the side of Goliath in this story. Paul Drayback, my good friend from NegativeG.com, loves Goliath, was his number 1 steal. I don't know if it still is. I love Goliath. It's in my top 15, and I'm going to go with Goliath in this one over New Texas Giant.
You seem to like picking the Goliaths tonight. I do. That's the second one you've picked now in the last two matchups here. You've picked the 2 Goliaths.
Hopefully, this pick makes a little bit better, return for me than the last one did.
Well, unfortunately for you, it does not. It is New Texas Giant taking down Goliath, New Texas Giant, onto the Elite Eight. How about that? I know you're not happy to see it, but New Texas Giant moving on to the next round.
I got news for New Texas Giant. It's going to meet its match come in the Elite Eight here, because this is the matchup that I think is one of the premier matchups of this tournament. Expedition G-Force and Maverick, the great Maverick. The Maverick that was screwed last year, that was sent packing in the first round by that crappy coaster down in Orlando.
By Manta.
Exactly, that crappy coaster down in Orlando was sent packing. So now...
No. You said Sandusky wrong, and you said Raptor wrong.
But Expedition G-Force is a ride that people really love. Like, come on, Expedition G-Force. We said it in the first round video that, hey, when you look at point of views, you can see why. So can it beat Maverick? I don't know.
Do you have a pick here? Because you yourself, when we recorded the show, the last round, you looked at a video of Expedition G-Force afterwards, and you said, "Wow, that looks like a really nice coaster. I don't know if Maverick will beat it." And that's
where we're at right now, aren't we?
You have to keep, and then you have to consider, Maverick is a coaster that almost everyone who voted in the poll has ridden, and then Expedition G-Force is surely one that all the European people who have ridden it rank it very, very highly, and even a lot of the Americans who have been over to Europe and have ridden Expedition G-Force, most of those people you would think rank it very highly. I mean, look at where it is in the golden tickets. I mean, we all have our different opinions about the golden tickets, but even in the Mitch Hawker poll, Expedition G-Force is one that's constantly in the top 3, top 2, top 1 even sometimes. So, running that through the matrix, what happens here?
And the one thing you didn't mention is Maverick has a lot of haters out there. And I don't know if those haters rode the new soft restraints this year. I think the soft restraints are why we see it move up this year. But were there enough people to ride it in the last season to move it up even further to knock off something like Expedition G-Force?
Right.
I'm going to go out on a limb and make a crazy. People are going to be like, what the hell are you talking about, Rabarchak? I'm going to say Expedition G-Force is moving on here. And I'm a winner either way. So whatever you say, I'm a winner either way. Either I'm right or Maverick moves on. So I'm a winner either way.
Well, yeah, you bring up a good point about those soft restraints, because you said last year before the ride opened with those, you said, or after you rode it, and a lot of the headbanging was eliminated and the airtime wasn't affected like you and I both feared it would be. You said there is now no reason for people not to love Maverick.
Yeah,
because
none.
the thing you always hear is that it's the headbanging, and that's gone now.
Yeah.
So there's no reason for people not to absolutely love Maverick.
If you don't love Maverick now, you don't love roller coasters. Plain and simple. So stick that in your pipe and smoke it.
We've said the same thing we've said that about Voyage too. If you do not get off of Voyage and think that is one of the best roller coasters on this planet, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, seriously. Seriously.
That's the way you and I feel. Well, anyways, enough talk. A battle of big boy intimates here. You picked Expedition G-Force. The Cedar Point fanboys picked Maverick. And, last year, Maverick made an early exit to Manta. Expedition G-Force made a second-round exit at the hands of Intimidator 305. So both looking for redemption here. Expedition G-Force is our winner. Expedition G-Force is moving on to the Elite Eight to take on the Texas Giants. So Maverick takes down Banshee, takes down its cross-state rival, but not enough to take down the pride of Germany over there, Expedition G-Force.
However, I do think it should be noted that I think even though Maverick is almost 10 years old at this point, so when we're moving into next year's Thrilling 32, Maverick will be 10 years old. I think that Maverick is still going to have the opportunity to keep moving up this poll as more and more people experience the new restraints and say, this has really increased my enjoyability. Because anyone that I didn't hear anyone say this year, the soft restraints ruined my ride on Maverick. I didn't hear that sentiment being echoed anywhere. If I did hear anything, it was either it did not change my experience or it improved my experience.
It made it better.
That being said, Maverick should start moving up some lists here. Of course, you have the Cedar Point haters as always. So they're always sipping the haterade out. When you're talking about Cedar Point. So of course, some people are naturally going to rank it lower.
Yeah, I believe that you will be correct, and I believe that we will continue. And we'll see at the end of all this where Maverick actually came in and to see if it did move up in its rankings. It's been moving down a little bit over the last couple of years, but we'll see if maybe it's countered by moving up this year.
Yeah.
So why don't we move on now to the next region? We've got the Skyrider region where we've got Behemoth from Canada's Wonderland going up against Fury 325, new for 2015, that massive, awesome Giga Coaster down there at Carowinds, going up against a longtime favorite, a coaster that you and I both really, really like, Behemoth at Canada's Wonderland. And you know what? Here's the way you have to look at this. We know Manta was good enough to beat Maverick last year. So we know Manta comes in pretty high in this poll. We know Behemoth beat Manta this year. So you know Behemoth is probably pretty high on that poll. So now you have to run that through your thought process and say, where did Fury come in on this list? Did it come in high enough to knock off Behemoth? We know it came in high enough to beat Blue Fire in the first round. And Blue Fire is one of those weird ones where it's like, well, not a lot of people who voted have ridden it, so it's really questionable as to where that one ended up. Same thing with Fury. A lot of people rode it this first year, but where does it end up? Two B&Ms, two very different B&Ms. Fury versus Behemoth, and if we want to look at the comparison here, Behemoth was number 3 in 2012, dropped to number 13 in 2013, and then last year coming in at number 16. And then Manta, I believe, was higher than Behemoth last year in the poll. So Behemoth beating Manta this year makes you think, well, maybe Behemoth moved back up a little bit here. And then Fury being a new ride, where does Fury come in with that? The ridership that you like to talk about. Where does that make Fury fall?
Stop. Because there's no question in my mind that Fury 325 moves on. So you talked about all that. It all sounded nice and good. I tuned out. I didn't hear a word you said after you said Behemoth versus Fury 325. I wasn't listening. You know why I wasn't listening? Because Fury's going to win. Let's be honest. If Fury is a superior roller coaster, Fury's moving on. Let's just get over.
Now, when you look at this region, Behemoth, Fury, Skyrush, and Bizarro, those are four coasters that could potentially all be in the Elite Eight, maybe even the Final Four. Behemoth has been in the Final Four. Skyrush, I think, is good enough to be in the Final Four. It's never been there. Bizarro, obviously the defending champ. Fury 325 knocks off Behemoth. Fury 325 is going to the Elite Eight. So now, this is where it gets interesting. We've got Skyrush versus Bizarro. So Skyrush, look at Bizarro here. Bizarro, the defending champion, took down Thunderbird, which is a very nice coaster down there at Holiday World. Now Bizarro is going up against Skyrush. And then even if it gets through Skyrush, the defending champ will have to go up against Fury. So now Skyrush versus Bizarro, I know your thoughts are very heavily weighed towards Skyrush on this, but knowing Bizarro won last year and knowing that Skyrush was pretty low last year, I think in the 20s, what are you thinking here?
You know, once again, I stopped listening to you. And not because this time because I thought Fury was going to win, but because I don't even want to know the results of this because I know the bullshit that is about to ensue when you announce this decision. I already know the outcome of this and all the little Bizarro lovers out there for some obscene reason. And I know that they all hate probably Skyrush too because it hurts their little legs. Oh, my legs hurt. Oh,
yeah, I don't understand those people.
Stop. Oh, it's so sickening. Oh, it's disgusting. So I already know what's going to happen. Bizarro's going to win, and it's going to be a travesty of justice, just like it was last year when it won the whole tournament. It was a travesty of justice, and it's disgusting what happens, and I don't even care. I don't even want to hear about it.
Well, get your barf bag ready, at least for you anyways, because Bizarro's moving on. I think you saw that one coming. Maybe other people didn't, but Bizarro is moving on to the Elite Eight. The defending champ stays alive. So now...
Come on! Helen Keller saw that
Fury
one coming.
Bizarro. Well, now wait a minute here. Here's the question now. Do you think your quote-unquote bullshit continues and Bizarro knocks off Fury, or do you think Fury comes in high enough to knock off the defending champ? That is a decision and a half that needs to be made.
It really is, isn't it? It really is. It's a decision of the century there, because the answer is clear once again. But was the answer clear enough to the people who voted in the polls? I don't know. We're still trying to determine how many fools you got to vote this year. So that number hasn't been disclosed yet.
Well, it could have been too many fools because there wasn't enough fools to put Raptor into the bracket. So obviously not enough fools.
Well, just wait till next year. Just wait till next year. Just wait till next year.
Oh, sure. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, shall we move on here to the
Raptor legit wins next year.
Yeah. Okay.
Raptor's going to legit win next year. Don't worry.
You better start making those fake email addresses now because you're going to need a lot of them. All right, the Hypersonic XLC region coming at you here. Phantom's Revenge, I think the surprise of the century, which knocked off Millennium Force in the first round, going up against Nemesis, which knocked off Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom. Now, Nemesis, I think, is the sentimental favorite for you because built in the same year as Raptor, inverted coaster, nice intense inverted coaster. You know, you really like Nemesis when it comes to this. At least sentimentally, what do you think practically about it taking down Phantom's Revenge?
I got news for you. Phantom's Revenge deprived me of the rematch I wanted to see. I wanted to see the Millennium Force Nemesis rematch. And here, Phantom's Revenge overcomes Millennium Force in round one. Shocks the world. Like speaking of, like you posted on Facebook just recently, like the Miracle on Ice, this was the Miracle on Wheels for Phantom's Revenge. Let's be honest here. Overtaking Millennium Force. So here...
The Miracle on from West Mifflin.
So Nemesis, I think, is the clear choice here and the clear winner. I like Phantom's Revenge as much as the next guy does, but I don't think it belongs in a discussion of the Elite Eight in the world. Come on, let's get past, like, Nemesis probably should be in that discussion, not Phantom's Revenge.
Well, Nemesis was a Final Four coaster last year. I mean, some people seem to forget that. Knocked off quite a few good coasters. Nemesis is one win away from the Final Four again because it knocks off Phantom's Revenge as well here. So by process of elimination, you know that Nemesis ranks better than Millennium Force once again this year.
Yeah.
So, how about that? Nemesis going to the Elite Eight once again here. That's quite an accomplishment.
Absolutely. Nemesis is one of those roller coasters that is on my list, probably my top 5 roller coasters that I really want to get on. There's not a lot of coasters that I sit there and say, hey, I wish I could really ride this. Nemesis is one of that, is that coaster. Maybe, Expedition G-Force, Blue Fire, those are also on that list. But Nemesis definitely towards the top of that, so not surprising to me at all. However, moving on to the next matchup, you want to talk about not knowing which way to go. This is another tough matchup, and very likely, you might not even have this matchup on your bracket right now, because I think a lot of people picked Diamondback over Twisted Colossus in round 1.
Yeah, I think that's one that surprised a lot of people. Well, maybe not surprisingly enough. I think it's actually to be expected. Most of the people who picked Twisted Colossus, when they put in where they're from on that Google form, California, Arizona, Nevada, all the West Coast people having faith in their coaster out there, Twisted Colossus. So I think as our buddy Brian, who said out there, you better not screw the West Coasters this year. We got one of your coasters going through here anyways. Gold Striker's going through to the Elite Eight over there in the wood side. But I think, for the Magic Mountain people, it's about the steel coasters there. I mean, at the end of the day, they want to see the Twisted Colossus, the X2, the Tatsu. They want to see those coasters going through because those coasters are their pride and joy. We saw X2 go down in the first round to Iron Rattler, but Twisted Colossus, I think maybe a bit of a mild upset over Diamondback, at least in the terms of what the people were picking. So Twisted Colossus going up against Intimidator 305, which has been the runner-up the last 2 years. And 3 years ago, in the very first year of this contest, was the inaugural champion. So Intimidator 305 was 1, then 2 again last year. But, you think about it, with how many new people, not everyone is a fan of Intimidator 305. Some people don't like the intensity, same thought process as Maverick. Some people don't like the jerkiness to decide, and people love these RMC coasters. So it doesn't seem that impossible that we could see Intimidator maybe drop a few spots, and maybe Twisted Colossus comes in the top 10 somewhere, and maybe it's ahead there. I mean, Diamondback was a really highly ranked coaster last year. So to know that Twisted Colossus beat it, Twisted Colossus is really high on this list.
Yeah, this one's super tough. I still think I-305 is the better of the two coasters. I really like Twisted Colossus. I don't think it's I-305 level. There's a lot of people saying that they really, really love Twisted Colossus. But I'm still going to have to pick I-305 as the one to move on here because of its history. Twisted Colossus, I still don't know how many people got out there to ride it. It was really impressive to beat Diamondback, but I think that story's about to end right now.
Well, and like I said, Intimidator 305 has been the runner-up the last 2 years. Looking to reclaim the title, it hasn't won the last 2 years. Intimidator 305 stays alive. Twisted Colossus goes down. Intimidator 305 is moving on. So now in the Elite Eight, Nemesis knocked off Millennium Force last year. We know it would have knocked off Millennium Force again this year, knocked off Phantom's Revenge. So now Intimidator 305 versus Nemesis, again, 2 Final Four coasters from last season. Going at it with a berth on this year's Final Four on the line in the Elite Eight.
And that's not an easy one to choose there either. So this no. Whereas I've kind of said that the wood side seems to be revealing itself, I think there's still a lot of question marks on the steel side thus far on who's going to make it into the Final Four and into the championship game. But but once again, steel coasters, a lot more varying opinions on steel coasters than wood coasters, I think, amongst the coaster enthusiast group.
Yeah, I think so, and that's what makes the steel that much more difficult to predict here. So moving on to the final region for tonight, it's the Big Bad Wolf region, the final region of the 2016 Thrilling 32 Bracket Challenge. On the steel side of things here, the second round, the Sweet 16. First matchup, we've got Leviathan, the Giga Coaster from Canada's Wonderland, going up against Intimidator, the Hypercoaster from Carowinds. And I said this last round. It's interesting because we saw the Giga from Carowinds go up against the Hyper from Canada's Wonderland. And now we're seeing the Giga from Canada's Wonderland go up against the Hyper from Carowinds. So will Carowinds get the clean sweep with Intimidator, or will the Gigas take the clean sweep with Leviathan knocking off Intimidator? We know Canada's Wonderland can't get the clean sweep because Behemoth already lost, but Leviathan could kind of settle the score and even the score here, or Carowinds could get the clean sweep with both of theirs moving on. So I don't know. What do you think here? Leviathan, Intimidator.
This one's another tough one for me. I'm just thinking I prefer Leviathan in this situation. However, I do know there's a lot of people singing high praise for Intimidator 232.
These two are really close on my list.
Yeah, on my list they're not as close. I think about 10 spots separate the two of them. With Leviathan obviously getting the nod.
I think it's only like 3 or 4 on mine.
Yeah, I'm gonna have. I'm gonna go with Leviathan.
We're going with Leviathan.
Yeah, and I'm not. That is not. Leviathan. That is not a confident choice on my part. I'm going with Leviathan.
Yeah, you don't sound very confident at all.
I'm going with the Gigas. That's the theory. People love big.
And Leviathan was the runner-up in its first year, and then won the second year, and then dropped down to third last year. So, and again, with a lot more people, and you've got a lot of these new coasters, like, you had Fury, you had Wicked Cyclone, Twisted Colossus, which we know ended up being pretty high on this list somewhere, coming in. Intimidator goes down.
Ooh.
I tricked you there. Leviathan is moving on to the Elite Eight once again, so Leviathan, its quest for reclaiming the crown that it had 2 years ago is still alive. It's going to the Elite Eight, looking to make it to the Final Four again. But it's got one more victory to notch before it gets back to the Final Four. But what do you think of Leviathan knocking off Intimidator?
It's not, like I said, it's not surprising. People generally like height. Leviathan has traditionally done well in this poll. I think now that it's gone past Intimidator, I actually like Leviathan a lot at this point because I don't like one of the two coasters in this next matchup. I really like the other coaster in this next matchup, but I don't know if that other coaster that I really like in this next matchup actually has the legs to make it to the Final Four. So at this point right now, I'm feeling very strong about Leviathan. And if you have Leviathan going to the Final Four, I'm feeling very strong about your brackets right now too.
Well, and that's something you said during the selection show. You said that you said this was the region where if you found a coaster that you liked and would ride it to the Final Four, this is where you could pick up some points. And you pointed out Leviathan as that coaster. You said Leviathan might be the coaster that might be the easiest to pick to go to the Final Four out of any of the coasters in the steel bracket because there's some good coasters in this region, no doubt. but Leviathan is the one that historically has always done well in this poll and is the one that you feel like you might be able to ride through a handful of matchups here. And, of course, this last matchup of the night we're talking about is Apollo's Chariot going up against Iron Rattler. And Iron Rattler is the one that you really like here. Apollo's Chariot winning the battle of the older BM hypercoasters, knocking off Nitro. And as I alluded to a little bit ago, Iron Rattler knocked off X2. Magic Mountain, which is no small task. So Iron Rattler has to be pretty high up there to knock off X2. I know you're picking Iron Rattler here, but do you have any other thoughts?
Well, this is almost on the same level of Bizarro for me. It's almost like Bizarro World when people sing the praises of Apollo's Chariot. I don't understand it at all, and I almost fear the outcome here because I think excuse me, let me rephrase that. I know Iron Rattler is the superior roller coaster in this matchup by far. Apollo's Chariot doesn't even meaningfully rank on my rankings. That it doesn't even make it into the top 50 on my rankings. So to me, Iron Rattler that is in the top 10 should move on. Although I am fearful that Apollo's Chariot and the fools that you call friends have voted him that way.
I'm rubbing my hands together like you like to. Drum roll, please. Iron Rattler is moving on to the Elite Eight.
Well, it restores my faith in the voting pool of this year's poll.
So you admit that they did a good job in not letting Raptor in.
Oh, hells.
I set you up for that one.
So, I can't wait till next year. I can't wait till next year when each round you gotta say, oh, Raptor's moving on. Raptor's moving on. Oh, it's gonna kill
wait,
you.
Are we doing a worst of the worst next year?
Oh.
The trashy 32? The throbbing 32, because that's what your head is doing after you exit the Cobra roll?
Oh, you got jokes tonight, Danny Miller. You got jokes.
I know. So, anyways, with the steel matchups here, our Elite Eight here. Let's see. I'm not even looking at the bracket. I'm trying to remember this. I should know this off the top of my head here. It's New Texas Giant going up against Expedition G-Force. I believe. Mm-hmm. Then we've got Fury going up against Bizarro. We've got Nemesis against Intimidator 305 and Leviathan against Iron Rattler. That is your Elite Eight for 2016. Thoughts on that bunch? Because there is not a bad. I know you're not a fan of Bizarro, but there is not a bad coaster in that bunch.
Not a fan of New Texas Giant either. So two out of the 8. 1/4, 25% of it, I think, is trash. So don't be singing your praises here like, oh, look at all these great roller coasters. Let's be honest, 25% of it's trash, Danny Miller.
Just the way you said that made me, I think it's trash. The way you said that just... Oh, my goodness. Any final thoughts tonight before we leave the phone?
I don't know. I got nothing else for you this evening. I think, it's going to be exciting to see who comes out of that one. Once again, I think the steel region's a little bit harder to pick. Like, you see all these coasters and you're like, which one's gonna prevail? I think the wood coaster side, and I think that's the easier one. I think the clear choices are coming out of that one. We'll see what happens though. Because the next show we're in the Elite Eight picking the Final Four. So that's going to be really exciting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as always, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for taking the time to watch our nonsense here and figure out how your brackets are doing. Hopefully, you're still in the game. I will be posting up on the COASTER.net forums and probably on Facebook as well the up-to-date standings, so you will be able to see where you lie right now. You will be able to see the point totals of everyone else, as well as their champions for wood and steel. So, if your champions are still in the running right now, I think you have to feel good about yourselves. We talked about with the wood, if you have 4 or 5, maybe even 6 of your coasters still in it, same thing with the steel. If of these 16 that are left in the 2 brackets combined, I think if you have like 8 to 12 left still in it, then you've got to feel pretty good about what you've done, because this is very, very difficult to do.
Yeah.
And it is very, very difficult to name even one round completely correct. So I think if you've got 10 or 12 of these final 16 still in the running, I think you've got to feel pretty good about yourself right now. So please make sure you are scoring your brackets at home as well. If you have any discrepancies with the standings you see posted on the various avenues, please contact me, Danny Miller at COASTER-net.com, and we will clear that up, make sure we got, I've been doing a lot of these, so it's quite possible, we're humans over here, so, some people really like Raptor, we all make mistakes, so, it's quite possible, it's quite possible that I could have made a mistake somewhere along the lines. It's probably pretty likely.
Well, on that note,
again,
on that note, thanks for joining us here. I'm, of course, Andrew Rabarchak from Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm a punchy Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
Oh, right on, Ride Warriors.
See you next round.